Moving on to the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I'm so mad that you ended up with this team, by the way, because they're just I get invited on Thunder podcast now. I'm a Thunder homer. It's like when I went through the Phoenix Suns being a little bit ahead of them than a lot of other people in the national media. And now Thunder fans currently like me. I love it.
Well, because there's nothing bad to say about the team, so of course they like you. You're just saying all the good things. Um, and I'm going to say some more. So the question for them to me is kind of like are we doing this like already? Which is, are we going to kind of add some talent now? Because they're in it. Unfortunately, the answer is no, we are not, or no, they should not. I'm not. It's a lot of fun to be buyers. They're good enough to justify being a buyer. I think they should just be opportunistic. They're in a different place than some of these other teams that are rebuilding. They're in a better place, obviously, asset wise, young talent wise, everything's golden for them, but it's still a phase of so say they trade because they got the picks to do it. Say they go get Beasley, Bogdanovich, like whatever, doesn't make them a likely team to win a playoff series or whatever. And then you've given up on some of those long-term assets. So to me, it's like, they're not going to trade any of their top 6 or 8 guys. There's nobody else that really makes enough money to really do anything other than Darius Baisley, who, I don't know if he has value at all around the league. He's at 4.2 million. They have this roster crunch issue. So a multiple guys for one makes a lot of sense because they're going to have to figure out what to do to clear space to accommodate the draft picks that are coming. I as much as I want them, or as fun as it would be to say, well, just let's throw the picks on the table. Let's go get the best 2 players we can because we can make that happen. It's not really true because they don't have the matching salary that they should be willing to give up, generally speaking. And it's just kind of too early, I think, still to be adding talent. I don't know if you disagree. I imagine you have them with avenues towards being more aggressive to add talent, but I'm not sure I see, the easiest way or the most obvious targets to do that. Shooters, sure. Guys who can finish. They suck finishing at the rim, even though they have SGA. That kind of thing would be obvious needs, but I just don't see the easy way to do that.
Yeah, and they're so limited in what their salary matching is. Because you're not going to trade Shea, you're not going to trade Lou Dort independent of a blockbuster, which you're not going to make this season when you haven't seen Chet Holmgren. So that means you're also not going to trade Josh Giddey. It kind of also means then that you're not going to trade Jalen Williams. And then we're talking about players who make $3 million. Yeah. So it's hard to step ladder your way there. You do, however, have the $10.2 million trade exception. Mm-hmm. And so it's could you try and do something with that? You can get a more expensive player while sending out a cheaper one. I think that they do have some guys who could be viewed as dispensable, but they also have to look at it this way. They have some 2nd-round picks, but they have 1 first-round pick coming in this year. And they have projected to have 1 open roster spot because I think that they'll bring Jeremiah Robinson-Earl, Isaiah Joe, Aaron Wiggins back, Mike Muscala team option back, and they'll show Darius Baisley the door. Yeah. And I think I could make a case where it's well, do we need to know whether necessarily that a JRE is going to be your long-term, or do you need to have Mike Muscala? So there's some roster flexibility there, in my opinion. But when you're really only dealing with that fine of a line, it's, well, what can Darius Baisley plus what get us? And so right. I want them to buy. I want to make that clear. I want them to buy. That's what I want. But I don't know that they're not going to rush this. Maybe they'll be more aggressive over the offseason when they have cap space, but they still probably want to see what Chet looks like with this core. And I think that's eminently fair. I don't mean to, I guess, jump ahead here, but let's just get to the trade idea for them. I think Baisley's the most likely player to be moved. And so the trade idea I have is OKC gets PJ Washington, and then Charlotte gets Darius Baisley, the Clippers 2024 first round pick, or Oklahoma City's first round pick. It is the less favorable, and it's top 16 protected. So you can go and protect that Clippers pick. And then they get a 2nd-round pick as well. Is that enough for you to part with PJ Washington if you're Charlotte? And then OKC fans might look at it as, well, we can just pay PJ Washington in restricted free agency. Restricted free agency doesn't work like that. Teams, if the player matters, are going to match. And so that was my thought process there. I did say, and I just know because you root for the Warriors and Steph is involved, I'm trying to figure out a way to get Seth Curry on this team, just because it's Brooklyn might not want to play small when it's Kyrie and Royce O'Neal and Ben is there, but I just didn't know, like, what are you giving Baisley and picks for Curry, because you do have the traded player. So, like, I just don't think that moves the needle for Brooklyn. Maybe over the summer if Kevin Durant requests a trade, but that was the player I focused the most on. I had a Garrison Matthews deal, but that just felt like too much of a fuck you just to be like admitting to that the Thunder were going to do nothing. So I went this route.
Yeah, no, I think the Curry thing. I do think Baisley's not going to move the needle, but someone like Muscala might, which is sort of like, well, now we're just taking shooting away from one position to add it at another. But I do think Muscala would have some value for any team that is, oh, we need some stretch from a front court spot, and we can't get Turner, we can't get Chris Boucher, we can't get Olynyk. Well, Muscala is just right there for way less money than any of those guys. But yeah, I think the Charlotte thing for Washington. I would imagine that the Thunder, to get him in restricted free agency, would just have to put a number out there that was like on purpose too much so that it wouldn't get matched. So I'm not into the deliberate overpay just to get a guy. I don't know if Charlotte. So to answer from the Thunder's perspective, yeah, I'm doing that. I'm giving up Baisley and the protected first, or less favorable for sure, for Washington. If I'm Charlotte, I think I'm either just going to, use the leverage and power that comes with restricted free agency to keep him, or, ask for something more than that. Because Washington, I feel like he's a fit in a lot of places. So getting him restricted free agency will be very interesting for him, because he's sort of been forgotten because the Hornets are irrelevant this season. But he's a guy that is not a star, but just would fit in literally any rotation around the league. So the way restricted free agency works is going to make him an interesting guy.
So you would say no if you're Charlotte?
Yeah, I'm saying no. I'd do it if I'm the Thunder, though.